My style can't be duplicated or recycled. This chick is a sick individual. Sick tape! Let me switch up the game. I drink that cone, step back cause I might put it on. I go deep, so deep till you sleep, count sheep, wake you up from my way. You don't want me at the show, how freaking chick act when I ain't sober. What up, I'm toe up, show up, they ain't scared to take it off, tell them free to take it off. Tipsy and I feel good, black dudes got big woods, into it, I do it, I get it.
Good evening, everyone, and welcome to this episode of the Heritage Project. My name is Mariah Ford, and I am a proud member of the Heritage Committee here at the Arsht Center. Tonight, we will be exploring the history of Black Greek step and marching band traditions. I'd like to thank Bank of America for sponsoring this special project, and Bank of America believes that the arts matter. They help economies thrive, help individuals connect with each other and across cultures, and educate and enrich societies. The Heritage Project is also supported by the Arsht Center's Miami Diaspora Fund, which commissions and presents transformative performing arts works by artists of color who have been underrepresented on America's performing arts stages. If you'd like to donate to the Miami Diaspora Fund, text Greek STEP to 41444 to support our efforts in uplifting Black voices in our community. Closed captioning is also available and can be accessed through the link provided in the chat. Black Greek organizations have been on the front lines transforming our communities for over 100 years. Out of the 9 Black Greek organizations in what's known as the Divine Nine, 5 were founded in the month of January. As a proud member of Delta Sigma Theta Sorority Incorporated, I would like to wish a very happy Founders Day to all of my lovely sorors of DST as we celebrate 108 years of service today on January 13th. The art of stepping is one that is highly valued and regarded in Black Greek culture. Our bodies are used as percussive instruments, using our hands, our feet, and our voices to show unity and pride within our organizations. Tonight, we will discuss the root of stepping, tracing all the way back to Africa, and how this beloved art form has influenced step and dance today in the 21st century. Here is a clip from the first company dedicated to stepping, Step Africa.
Step Africa.
And with that clip being from Step Africa, one of our panelists is representing Step Africa, so we look forward to hearing from her later on this evening. Historically, Black colleges and universities were established as a result of racial discrimination in our country, providing undergraduate and graduate level education to African American students who were denied entry at white institutions. Today, there are 107 HBCUs in 23 states across the country. In Florida, we have Bethune-Cookman University in Daytona Beach, Florida Agricultural and Mechanical University in Tallahassee, Edward Waters College in Jacksonville, and Florida Memorial University right here at home in Miami Gardens. One aspect of HBCU culture that is tremendously adored and highly respected are those bad marching bands. Of course, we go to the football games to root for our beloved teams, but we are also there sometimes primarily there to see the band. As we say at HBCUs, halftime is game time. The Marching 100 at FAMU, the Marching Wildcats at Bethune-Cookman, Sonic Boom of the South at Jackson State, and the Tiger Marching Band at Grambling State, just to name a few, are known to blow the roofs off stadiums with those melodious horns and that powerful drum line, throwing in that swag we all know and love to make a performance that is out of this world. Before I introduce our moderator for the evening, I'd like to play a short clip from Ricky Smiley with his take on HBCU marching bands.
All right, there's halftime. You want some nachos? All right, come on, let's go get some nachos. Hey, you want something? Hey, shut your pie hole! Right, there, we're going to get some nachos. Because nobody want to see the band. Because you know the band, it's just okay. It's good. They do nice precision, but that's a good time to get on up and go get you a hot dog or something. Because you know who? Don't nobody want to. FAMU, Alabama State. Morehouse, Clark, Tennessee State. Tuskegee, Marshall, Crimson Purples. Why you ain't been?
All right. Now I can talk about this all night, but I'm so happy to have our esteemed panelists with us who will share their knowledge and expertise on the history of Greek step and marching bands and its influence on entertainment today. Moderating our discussion this evening is Timothy Barber, Executive Director of the Black Archives Historic Lyric Theater here in Miami and a past drum major for the Marching 100 at FAMU. Without further ado, I hand it off to Mr. Timothy Barber.
Good evening. Good evening. How are you? Thank you so much, Mariah. It's great to watch those clips and laugh. Welcome to everyone and everyone that is involved with making this happen. I'm certainly honored to be a part of this program, and we hope that it enlightens you and brings some more awareness to the work that these gentlemen and these ladies do, and the students that are part of these programs and the Greek fraternities and sororities. Hope that it bring and enlighten someone. Ironically, it's Founders Day for Delta Sigma Theta. Congratulations, happy Founders Day. But we want to move on and we want to introduce this amazing panel. I first want to start with Mafan Akpan. Mafan Akpan, she was trained extensively in tap, ballet, jazz, modern dance, African dance, and step, while attending the State University of New York at Stony Brook. She majored in biochemistry and cultivated her stepping skills as a member of Delta Sigma Theta Sorority Incorporated. Mafan began her training at the Bernice Johnson Cultural Arts Center and has performed at Carnegie Hall, Avery Fisher Hall, the Apollo Theater, the Brooklyn Academy of Music, and Lincoln Center. Mafon toured with the off-Broadway show, Hoofin' to Hitting, where she was a featured stepper and dancer. And I asked Mafon if you can turn your camera off and say hello, turn your camera on. Welcome, Mafon. How are you?
I am doing well. Thank you for having me.
Good, good. Thank you so much. Our next guest is the director of university bands at Florida Memorial University. He goes by the name of Mr. Richard Beckford. He's a highly sought out band director, clinician, prolific music arranger and composer, and creative drill writer. His music and shows have been performed by numerous high school and college marching bands, as well as jazz ensembles, both nationally and internationally. Mr. Beckford is best known as a visionary and a builder of bands. He is frequently referred to as the Pied Piper of bands. For his ability to attract a multitude of students to his band programs and for his capacity to motivate and inspire them to excel. His students have become leaders, educators, mentors, musicians, Grammy Award winners, and productive citizens of their communities. He's among the most celebrated and revered band directors of our time. Mr. Beckford attended, of course, Florida A&M University, where he participated in the world-famous Marching 100 and studied music education. Greetings, Mr. Richard Beckford, my good friend. Are you with us today? Welcome.
How are you doing today, sir?
Good to have you. Good to have you. Thank you.
Honored to be on board. Thank you for having me.
Thank you so much. Our next guest, of course, is a great friend of mine. He's the band director of Miami Northwestern High School. You know, I went to Central, but we'll accept Northwestern for a little while. But an amazing musician, amazing French horn player, and also he is a former drum major for Florida A&M University. I want to introduce to you now Mr. Chad Norton.
Greetings, how you doing?
All right, welcome, Chad. Nice jacket there. Now, last but not least, that is on our panel. This is amazing individual and amazing creator and visionary. Is the director of college bands at Bethune-Cookman University. Mr. Wells has become one of the university's greatest ambassador, overseeing a band whose phenomenal sound and energy is known and respected worldwide. During his 20-year career as director of the Marching Wildcats, they have appeared in NFL Super Bowls, the Pro Bowl, and in the hit movie Drumline, in addition to several national TV commercials and an appearance on the Ellen DeGeneres Show. And as well as, if you have not seen Marching Orders on Netflix, this is the man. So we want to welcome here to our panel, Mr. Donovan Wells. Glad to have you, sir.
Glad to be here. Thank you for having me today, and hello to everyone.
Yeah, so definitely, we hope that everybody that's watching us will get an understanding of this band thing, you know, and STEP and fraternal organizations, you know. So we're going to start out, first of all, we're following a script of questions, and you guys are more than welcome to kind of interject and dialogue. You're some great minds and great workers. I want to talk about this band thing. We saw the Ricky Smiley clip, right? And we know Ricky has an affinity for HBCU bands. We see him react, and they kind of remind me, if you've been noticing on social media, a lot of people have been imitating. It's a song called Talking Out the Side of Your Neck. And it has become a phenomenon where people have been showing how a PWI, which is a predominantly white institution, HBCU is a historically black college and university, where we have people of all walks of life, black, white, indifferent, plays that clip of Talking Out the Side of Your Neck, and they imitate, just like Ricky Smiley did, how a white band looks like, what a white man looks like playing Talking Out the Side of Your Neck, and it's, you know, kind of bland. But then when they get to the black band, they got the pots and the pans and the glasses and the head. It's amazing. So I first want to ask you, how has military bands from the Civil War, do you think, influence marching bands today? What do we take away from the beginning of bands, in a sense? I'll direct the question. Anybody can answer, but I can direct it if you want me to.
Yeah, direct it, man.
All right. We're gonna see. You spoke up, Mr. Wells. So, in a sense,
I'll chat the next time.
yeah. So in a sense, what I'm saying, we know historically, during the Civil War era, many blacks were not allowed to carry guns. But
Right.
what they were able to do in the military was play the drums, play the fife, and things of that nature, and other menial, what we consider menial things in the war. But music played an important part to the movement of the army back then.
Right.
And so I guess I can ask, do you feel that the military played a valuable role in marching bands, period?
Oh, yes, without a doubt. You know, when you look at every marching band, we have military commands. We have attention, parade, rest, right face, left face, about face. So I think that's the foundation of it all. It all started with military. They needed musical groups that could move, you know, that could go out in the field and have ceremonies or play at funerals or whatever the case may be. So that's how the foundation was started. And you know, but anything once you turn it over to black folks, we're gonna put our spin on it, you know, and that's what has happened with the HBCU bands.
So it's interesting you say you put the spin on it, you know,
Right.
You know, and that's what we're going to talk about, that spin.
Right.
We know about the Ohio States and LSU and we've all seen Texas. Is it Texas Tech? Texas that does those, you know, very difficult maneuvers. Texas A&M. Thank you, Texas A&M. Mr. Beckford, when Mr. Wells say put the spin on it, you know, I could hear Horatio back in the day saying something like that. What is that spin, and what makes it different between PWIs and HBCU bands?
Well, I believe what Mr. Wells was saying before was the precision side, you know, the accuracy and the regimented, rudimentary, you know, techniques that's associated with the military style band. And that's important for precision. No one wants to see a sloppy band. But the style aspect, the swag, the rhythmic movements that's associated with our Black culture, we incorporated those things, you know, and I know William Foster, one of our great mentors, he incorporated a lot of that stuff. And he took the information from those military style Ohio States. But we added the Black culture to it. We added our movement, we added our rhythm, we added our choreography, our feel, and our swag to it that attracts our audiences, people who come to the game, even if they're not Black folks, come to the game to get an insight to how we move to music. And it's really, really amazing how we're able to put so many people on the field at one time and have that, you know, choreography so synchronized. And that's where the military side come back into it. You know, being able to just look at the Thurman Cookman's band, for instance, they got all those guys on the field and, you know, they have, you know, from end to end, everyone's moving the exact same way. And, you know, that's that accuracy, but then we bring our funk to it. And that's what's entertaining. That's what draws the crowd.
Mm. And so a lot of those traditions that we see in the black bands is bringing that flavor, that flavor, for lack of better terms, to the soup, you know, from being bland, you know. And so I want to say, what is the significance to Black Greek step and marching bands in Black culture? What is that significant? What makes it so, and how important that is to Black culture? I'm going to come over to Mafan. I know you two, we're talking about step, and we're going to dig into the Greek step, and you see my backdrop, you know. I work at an archive, so I have all of the historic documents and things like that, so I wanted to kind of set the standard. But talk about the significance of Black Greek step traditions to Black culture.
Yeah, well, even when you look at the significance of stepping and the marching band, there's a lot of crossover. Stepping gets a lot of its influences from the military. And around the 50s, you know, you had a lot of military men coming back into going to colleges. And when they did that, they joined these fraternities and sororities. And so you see this lineage of the military movement being incorporated into stepping. Stepping, of course, did not start out in the form that we see it and know it as today, but it started out a little more simply with, you know, chants and like a two-step around the plot, you know, singing in a quartet fashion. But then it evolved because it took a lot of these influences from the military. And when you look at the importance of it in terms of Black culture, I mean, it just reaches across so many different mediums. I mean, you have people like Beyonce and Jay-Z, and you have shows like A Different World and Fresh Prince of Bel-Air just tapping into the culture. We're rhythmic people, that's what we do. So you're gonna see a lot of that influences across the nation.
So you mentioned the military, a lot of Blacks coming back from the wars, and you mentioned the 1950s. We know 1946 was when Dr. Foster arrived. Dr. William P. Foster is the founder of the Marching 100, and we know he arrived on Florida A&M campus. And and his story was that he wasn't allowed to teach music, being a Black man at a white school. So he didn't get that opportunity. So that's what brought him to Florida A&M University. So the 50s, that was 46. That was around when people were coming back from the war and bringing those traditions. Mr. Norton, tell me about, you know, your influx into music, and what do you feel are the historical significance, influences of step and marching bands?
Just to go back to the first beginning, I believe that, especially with our high school bands, our football games are very prideful. And with our students, when they play, they're playing their music to help build the pride of our community, build the pride of our football players and our team. Just as if when they were in the wars, just as if when they used the bands in the wars to get the military ready to go to war, we also do the same things at our football games, get our football teams ready to go to war. We play nice songs, and you'll be surprised. Some of our games, when we're not there, our football team is a little down, but when we pull up and we start playing, the crowd get excited, and it's like, you know, it just changes the feel or the vibe, as some of the younger folk may say, for what we're trying to do. So that's pretty much it, I think.
Well, imitation is flattery. When we talk about Black marching bands, HBCU, ironically, I was listening to the Breakfast Club and they were talking about HBCU on their Breakfast Club today. But, you know, imitation is flattery. And the work that our forefathers, in terms of the early pioneers that worked in HBCU bands, you know, Portier and before him at Bethune and Foster and Dr. White and going far back for Southern bands, and these bands that began to evolve. And if I could say, the directors started to put their stank on the movement, and that's a good term. Because it's similar, like you go to church and sometimes we go to, and no disparity against any religions, you go to a Catholic church and it's like, you know, we all may have attended a Catholic funeral before. It's different from a Baptist funeral, you know, and that goes historically when you talk about Baptist preachers as opposed to AME and things of that nature. So marching bands, like Mr. Wells said, began to take a whole another form. It wasn't just about the X's and the O's and the squares and the rotate here, 3 steps, rotate back. The culture of Blacks began to take hold. Like even for Greeks, you know, the Greek singing was a part of all Greek fraternities. But then it began to be a celebration when people would consider what they say crossing over, when people would join the fraternity. And that's when a lot of the chants began to come out. That's when a lot of the activity and the sort of like when you're catching the Holy Ghost, you know, at a church. So, you know, why the set aside difference between the HBCU and a PWI? We noticed that Ohio State and their animations are starting to take root. But a lot of the animation started with Black colleges and universities who did not just want to put triangles and circles on the field. They wanted to be more picture. I got behind the band pageantry by Dr. William P. Foster. He talks about being more picture, that people could pay attention, they could see something and kind of identify with it. Why was it so important that this style of movement take hold for football games than what PEWIs do? And I'm gonna go to Mr. Wells because he said something yesterday that I really appreciated when you talked about, that phone call that comes from Hollywood that passes from California and all of those other regions and call Daytona. Talk about that, man.
Well, when you look at PWI bands, those bands are made up predominantly of white students, and it reflects their culture, and the way that they were brought up and the conservative bands that they were in high school. When you look at the HBCU band, it reflects Black culture, African-American culture. And we talked about, you mentioned it earlier, church service is different at a Black church than it is at a white church. You go see a comedian. A Black comedian is totally different from a white comedian. Both can be funny, but one relates to a group better than another group.
Yeah.
There are great bands, college bands all across the country. And I take nothing away from Ohio State, the Notre Dames, the Southern Cals, the Michigan, both Michigans. I take nothing, and Texas A&M, I take nothing from any of those bands. But there's a level of excitement. There's a level of creativity. There's a level of unexpected enjoyment that you're going to get from an HBCU band. And there's a spirit that's in an HBCU band that you're not going to find in anything else. And that has become marketable. We get calls all the time. We've done all of the pro teams in Florida. We've done many halftimes for all the pro teams in Florida. But when the NFL came to Tampa, they asked us to play at the Super Bowl. I think FAMU played at the Super Bowl. I believe that was Miami. Am I correct?
Yes.
A couple of years later, they had us do the Pro Bowl in Miami. There are a lot of colleges in this state, a lot of colleges in the South. But the NFL and commercials and TV shows, they're asking for HBCU bands because we bring something special to the table, and it's marketable in media and entertainment. So, and that's what we try to do. Everything that has happened for us, we didn't go out looking for anything. People just found us. I tell people all the time, I answer the phone and return calls, and that's how we got engagement. And but people will find us, and whether it was a movie, Ellen DeGeneres, any NFL engagements, TV shows. We did a TV show with FAMU, The Battle. We did a TV show on ESPN. All of the colleges in the country, they came to Florida and got Bethune-Cookman and Florida A&M. Because at the Florida Classic, I've always said, especially, and I'm not being biased, but especially late 90s and 2000s, especially when Dr. White was there, there was no better halftime in the world. I mean, people came and we would see it for ourselves, just standing in the end zone or on the sideline, getting ready to go on the field. It just seemed like the stadium took on an energy. It looked like another 20,000 people came from somewhere. And after halftime, it looked like 40,000 left, because most of the time y'all were beating the daylights out of us by then. We were down 32 or 35 by then, so, but to me, they were the glory days of the Florida Classic. And my father, my late father, he came to every Classic until he passed in 2016. He came to every one that we had in Orlando. Because after he came to the first one, he couldn't stop. He would go back and just tell everybody, you got to see what's going on in Florida with these bands. And he said, my son is the director of one of them, So that's my spiel on it.
Definitely. And so for those that are watching and kind of don't understand what it is that we're talking about, I think we queued up a clip Ms. Ford, are you able to play that clip for us so that people can kind of see what we're talking about? If you live on an island somewhere and you don't know about HBCU bands, can we cue that clip up, Ms. Ford? All right.
Please welcome the undefeated, undisputed marching Wildcats of Bethune-Cookman University, the Pride.
Wildcats put on a show. Every time we show up, we show out.
Monotone music, let's all lose it.
We've done commercials, Super Bowl, the movie, Drumline. We don't take anything but the best. Two things gonna happen. You gonna kick somebody's ass, or you gonna get your ass kicked. The audition process is for everyone every year.
If you're not performance ready, you're off the field. I have fun, but it's a job.
Step that way the first step.
This is by far the hardest thing I've ever been a part of. If you feel like you dying, go, please. Not on my watch.
More than it's a war feeling, it's a battle cry.
I didn't come here for school. I didn't come here for books. I just came.
You have to do it because you love it. Showtime, let's go now.
We practice like we always win. We perform like we never lose.
Amazing, 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 amazing. Great clip. Great work that you've been doing, Mr. Wells there in Daytona. I've been a fan, even though I'm from Florida A&M. I think I always shared with you that transition from 1996 in Tampa to 1997 in Orlando was night and day when you took over at the head of Bethune-Cookman Band, and it just re-energized me because 96 didn't look like 97. And so it was amazing, and I really enjoyed that. When you talk about, if you've never been to a Florida Classic back in the late 90s and the 2000s, when it was like 74,000 people in that stadium, I don't know where you've been. That's an amazing feel. I want to kind of segue a little bit because I want to bring in Mr. Beckford and Mr. Chad Noah, and the reason I want to focus in on you, because you guys are doing two things that are same, but two things that are very important from a perspective of Mr. Norton. You're working in the inner city. I grew up in the city. You grew up in the inner city. You went to Miami Jackson. I went to Miami Central. And you're working right now on the ground, cultivating young minds, cultivating young students in the inner city to keep them interested in music. Music has always been a part of the African diaspora. You know, we've always been musically inclined when you talk about Count Basie and all of the big bands, as well as Mr. Beckford, who now is the new director at Florida Memorial University, and you're building a band from the ground up, from scratch. So I'm gonna touch into that. But I wanna come back to Mafan first, because I wanna talk about, for me, myself, and then probably for those that are watching, our introduction into Greek life. For many of us was through the movie, Spike Lee movie.
School
Days. Yes, the movie by Spike Lee, School Days. That was many of, I don't know about anybody else, but that was my introduction into Greek life, to a point where we started imitating School Days and creating these small fraternal organizations in the high school. I remember there was a group called the MC Mutts, and they would imitate everything they saw in School Days, you know. The culture of Greek fraternal organizations and sororities plays a pivotal role in Black social life, you know. Can we talk about that, and in terms of the family feel of it? Why is it so important? And you could chime in from there.
Well, you can look at the reasons that these organizations were founded in the first place. I mean, Black people were not allowed to attend school, you know, and finally when Black people were allowed to attend school, higher education, college and universities, they found that there was a need to have a support system, you know, so they formed these organizations, fraternities for brotherhood, sororities for sisterhood. And when you look at the tenets of these organizations, we know that it's about the brotherhood and sisterhood, It's about scholarship, and it's about service. It's about making sure that we are supporting each other so that we can do what we need to do, graduate, and become productive members of our society, right? And so a lot of this comes with the community aspect. So a lot of the things that you see these organizations do in terms of their public service, you're going to want to bring the community in to strengthen the community. So, and also when you look at stepping, I mean, stepping is a community event. You look at the band, the marching band, it's a community event. It's bringing the people together. It's having a good time. It's supporting each other. So, you know, in the 80s, that's when stepping really kind of started transcending the fraternities and sororities. So it started being opened up to a wider range of people. At first, it was really traditional, where it was like only if you were a member of these organizations could you step. But then you had older brothers, older sisters coming home on vacation and teaching their younger brothers, teaching their younger sisters about stepping and the culture. You see these auxiliary organizations of these fraternities and sororities like Delta Gems and Kappa League and Men of Tomorrow. You see them forming and teaching this culture, and then you see it spreading into churches and schools. So it's definitely powerful in terms of what it can do for the community and the Black culture.
And most of us, I think most of us are part of either a social fraternity or a service fraternity on here. How does that play a role? I'm gonna say, what came first, the chicken or the egg? Were you interested in marching band and then you were introduced into a Greek organization, or were you in a Greek organization and kind of segue to band? Anyone can kind of chime in on that just a little bit?
As far as the organization is concerned, I began with Alpha Phi Omega, which is a service fraternity. I was introduced to that at FAMU. My section leader was a part of it. And I just loved the community feel of brotherhood and how the gentlemen got together and they were able to have great communication. And they taught you about a lot of things about friendship and understanding just how to be sociable and how to communicate with different people. And once I finished college, then I joined Omega Psi Phi Fraternity Incorporated. And that's another level of brotherhood because it reaches further. And it's just a great understanding. So with me, it was both. My first fraternity was Alpha Phi Omega before, well, kind of in the time where I was in college band, and then after I finished, then I decided to join Omega Psi Phi.
Mr. Becker, you about to?
Yeah. Well, for me, I'm a Jamaican boy that came to end up going to Florida A&M University and not knowing much about how the college situation works here in the country. But when I first got to FAMU, I didn't know anything about fraternities. Even though I might have seen a few movies, I just didn't know. But when I got there and got a chance to see some things, I got really excited to end up seeing the step team and watching some stepping, and end up joining Kappa Kappa Psi Fraternity Incorporated. And I got a chance to, experience the fraternity. So band came from me first, and then the fraternity came afterwards. So it was absolutely, that's how it turned out for me. And I'm really grateful for it.
Also, if you look at the band culture and fraternity and sorority culture, I mean, it's a rites of passage. It's very parallel, it's very similar, it's very intertwined. And you see a lot of the community leaders that have been a part of the band and a part of fraternity and sorority life. So for African Americans, that's the pillar of college life,
Yeah. Thank you so much. So I want to segue. I got something queued up. Ms. Ford, if you can, I'm going to pass the torch over to Chad, because I want to talk about what band has done for inner city youth. And I know that Mr. Bedford and Ms. Wells can speak to that as well. But let's cue up this next clip that we have. Let's see if we can surprise Mr. Norton real quick. All right. So thank you so much for that. We wanted to kind of put Northwestern on the screen. And, you know, I always say this, Chad, you know, you do some amazing things from a high school level. And I tell people this all the time, the band saved my life. You know, I was from the inner city, and I think the late Mr. Ronald Major, who was the principal at Central, assistant principal, figured out that what no other teacher, another school, elementary or middle school could figure out. He figured out that I loved the band. So he began to threaten me and say, I can't go on the band trips, and you know, I can't go to practice. And they realized that's what I loved, and that changed me. Because other than that, I was on the street doing crazy stuff. Your role in the inner city, building a band, trying to continue the traditions. We come from an era where our high school bands were large. You know, Mr. Beckford was at Carroll City, and they was a beast. And you had Dr. Chipman at Miami Central, and Tarver was still at Norland. I mean, the bands here was ridiculous back then. You had Jermaine Fleming at Jackson. And the bands here were like 260 to 300, like a small college band. Right, and we've seen over the years that it has, you know, trickled a little bit, but you kind of been in the trenches down here in the inner city working with an inner city band. How difficult is it for you to do that type of work? And then what are you seeing the difference from when you was at Miami Jackson as a student compared to being a teacher at this time?
To be completely honest, it's not easy. You have a lot of, you don't have much support, you know, dealing with all the things we're dealing with as far as academics and just things inside of the school. You don't have, you know, it's not much support coming around from everywhere as far as, you know, I don't want to get into it that much, but it's not easy, you know, but the great thing about it is that we have wonderful students, and we have students that love to work, and we have students that have pride about what they do. They take their time, they really come, they rehearse, they deal with me. That sometimes can be extremely difficult. And that's one of the great things about it. And if I speak about when I was younger, it's, you know, when you're in the seat, you don't really know what it takes because you're looking at it from a different perspective as a student. And, you know, once you switch and you flip around and you're sitting in front of your students, you know, I admired my band director, Dr. Fleming, Miss Hannah King, bless her soul, she passed away. But once I turned around and I started viewing band from a different standpoint as a director, with all the different things, all of dealing with the community, you know, we're at Miami Northwestern. So this is, for those that don't know, Miami Northwestern is probably one of the most popular schools in the United States of America. And there's a lot of expectation. There's a lot of standards that you must reach. And that can be difficult. And it's not just for myself, it's for everything here. That's just, you know, Miami Northwestern, that's just the spirit that we have. And there's no complaints about that because I really appreciate it because it helped me to grow as a band director. But it's not an easy task, but we have to make it work. You know, when I first walked into the building, I had maybe 9 to 12 students. And I just understood that I had to, you know, tighten up my belt and make it work. And that's what I did over the years. You know, I put in different formulas for my students to help them succeed. You know, when I was in high school, we had a full class full of everybody that was in the band. But, you know, when I first arrived, you know, things weren't set up that way. So, you know, I just had to devise my own plan to really help our students to be successful. And, you know, as I watched that video, you know, I know I might have some students watching it. It makes me very weak, if I must say that, and brings tears to my eyes because a lot of people don't know what it really takes to put those type of performances on the field. You know, they don't really know the amount of work that the kids had to put in. All they do, they see those 8 to 10 minutes, you know, they get excited, they're happy, but those students put in hours throughout the week, 4 hours a day, 2:30 to 6:30, sometimes later, every day out the week. Saturdays they come, Sundays they practicing during class, they have to get their grades. And as a band director, it's our job to kind of facilitate that and to help keep those students motivated and help them understand that, you know, me as a high school band director, I really try to enthuse them to understand that the next level is going to college and pursuing, you know, whatever career that they decide to pursue. So
definitely. And you were talking about coaching. I'm segueing over to Mr. Beckford, who has a task before him in building a bringing back a program that has been dormant. I don't know if they ever had a program before. So you're building a program over at Florida Memorial University, and talk about the difficulties in doing that, but at the same time, you know, talk about how does band and Greek bring a sense of community in the Black culture?
Well, that's really important. And to get to that part, I want to speak about what Chad was talking about earlier. I taught high school band for 30 years in the hood, as we call it. And the difference between, you know, I transcended from 90s through the early 2000s to now, to the present. And the difference was the sense of community. There was much more support back in the 90s for the whole band scenario. You know, there were more families that were united. What I found as the years have gone by is that there's almost like a systematic dissembling of the family over the last 30 years, where we have more single families, more students that don't have the support, and more students that are failing, even more than what's going on in the 90s. There are a lot of programs in place, you know, reading programs and remedial programs that challenge our students to be able to participate in band. And that's one of the main reasons why the band numbers have gone down here in South Florida. You know, they're identifying our students at risk, and they're putting them in programs that are failing our students. What our students need to be is involved in the arts. They need to be involved in the opportunity to perform and to excel in that way, to make a connection between what they're learning academically and what we're teaching them in the band room. This is how they learn discipline. And before I get into what you asked me, you know, if we would spend more money investing in students learning music and being a part of the arts in the elementary and middle school, we'll have much better behaved students when they get to high school, because they learn how to depend on each other as students. They learn how to pay attention. They learn how to focus. They learn how to sit still. They learn how to focus their energy on what is in front of them. And if they don't get that in elementary and middle school, you're going to have a problem with the child when they get to high school. They're distracted. They don't know how to put the phone away. You learn that in band. And that's the difference that I've seen. Chad is doing an amazing job over there at Northwestern, because I know what he has to deal with. And, you know, we were able to build those programs in spite of the challenges. You know, now that I've transitioned into the college realm, you know, and it's an honor for me to be able to do so, we have the challenge of being that hub that brings the community together. Because that's what college bands do. They unite the community that they reside in and the community around them into one, you know, like a football game. That's where it happens. And here in South Florida, we have a unique opportunity at Florida Memorial to bring some unity in an area that I've noticed have some dissension. You know, I said earlier that I was a Jamaican-born, you know, immigrant, but we have Bahamians and Haitians, and there's a lot of different black cultures, the Black Cubans, Black Latinos. And what I've noticed in South Florida from when I was a little boy is that we're not united. You know, we have our Blacks that go to college, our Blacks that don't. And we have segregated ourselves to the point where we don't unite. When you look at the other cultures here in South Florida, they're united. You know, the Latinos come together, but our Black culture have not come together as a united front. And what I'd like to see happen, my main goal is to allow the Florida Memorial University Band to be that hub that allows our community to unite. You know, some music does that. If we play a little reggae and a little Haitian music, you know, and you know, what is it? What do they call it?
Copa.
Copa. Yeah, there we go. We play a little Latino, and we're able to bring all those cultures together and unite at the game. You know, we have a lot of HBCU alumni here, and we don't have an opportunity. We have to go all the way to the Florida Classic just to get the HBCU experience. But to be able to create that environment between the fraternities and sororities, and being able to be the only HBCU here in Florida, South Florida, and the creation of the Roar, which is our marching band, the name of our marching band that we've created, being able to have that be the magnet and bring all those cultures together, I think it's going to be something dynamic. It's going to change the direction of the unity amongst our culture.
Thank you so much. And
Mr. Barber,
yes, sir.
Can I say something real quick?
Of course, of course.
Mr. Norton and Mr. Beckford, they're being extremely modest. I want to kind of give people a true perspective. I recruit all over southeastern United States and up the East Coast. And I go as far west as Dallas, Texas. And I go to a lot of school systems. The toughest school systems that I've been in is Miami and Washington, D.C.
Wow.
They're two of the toughest school systems that I've been in. And when I first came to Bethune-Cookman in 1996, and I went down to Miami to recruit, that was my first time. I had seen Mr. Beckford at a Battle of the Bands earlier that year, but that was my first time meeting him. And going into Carroll City, that was the old Carroll City. And looking at the environment, students there, it's a tough environment. It's a tough environment. What Mr. Norton has done, coming back, we have a different kid now. We have computer age kids. We have kids that don't go out and play anymore. They're PlayStation and Xbox kids. You're telling them to come on and play an instrument. It's going to take you about 3 years to get to the level that you need to be so that you can play in the high school band. And the average kid said that I don't have that kind of time. I could be doing this and I could be doing that. They are where we want to say they're in the trench. And I've gotten students from both of them. And the students I've gotten from both of them, from Carroll City, from Ely, from Miami and Northwestern, they've been pillars in our program. And not only just as musicians, they've been great students, but they came and they could fit into our program because of the structure and discipline that they've had there. And sometimes in the positions that they're in, the students they get, the first time they implement discipline and structure, that might be the first time they've had it in their life. So what they're doing is what I taught public school for 12 years, but what they're doing, that's real heavy lifting in education, real heavy lifting. And I don't think people really understand what they do on a day-to-day basis. And sometimes the only support you have is you, your kids, and the band boosters. Sometimes that's the only support that you have. Football, they can get all kind of sponsors and everything, but band kind of stands alone. Now everybody wants you for every event. They'll call you for every event, for the mayor, the school board, this, and every city event, and we're getting ready to have this, and everybody will call you, but you can't get the support. So these guys are and I've been knowing Chad since he was a student. I've been knowing Richard ever since he was at Carroll City. And I've seen Richard build a band. I've seen Chad build a band. He built one at Ely. Chad built one at Northwestern, because when he came to Northwestern, when he's being modest when he said he had 9 kids. He went and found 9 kids. He probably didn't have 9 kids. So he's being modest. These guys are in the trenches and they do heavy lifting, and they got the war scars to prove it. But the thing of it is that they've saved some kids' lives, man. They really have. And some of those kids are out, they're professionals now, they're married, they have their own families. And if it wasn't for guys like band directors and educators like them, I don't know where they would be. And Richard, you said something, you have the Jamaicans and Black Cubans and all the different Black races in Miami, and they don't get along. And sometimes we have to take responsibility for that too, because we see that they see our fraternities can't get along. They see our bands want to not just, it's good to have competition, but there's a hatred, between bands sometimes, high school and collegiate. One thing I always appreciated with FAMU, I wish the public could see us after the game. and Tim, we've taken pictures together and everything. After the game, you see the two bands together. You say, are they related? It's a family reunion after the game, out by the buses. They have we on one side of the street, y'all on the other side of the street, and in the middle, it's just like a big family reunion, and it goes on for about an hour. So I got to rally my kids and threaten to leave them if they don't get on the bus, because they just taking pictures, and I take pictures probably with 100 members of the Marching 100. The kids will just come up, and some of the kids I audition. They said, "Mr. Wells, you remember when you auditioned me?" And sometimes I do, sometimes I don't. But we got to learn to compete We got to learn to be different, but we got to learn that can happen and we can still love one another. We can still get along, you know, because one thing I see in the Greek community on a college campus, man, is, you know, they've turned into, for lack of a better term, they almost turned into gangs.
Yeah.
You know, and you know, even I'm a member of Phi Beta Sigma, but you know, I had to detach myself from that, and I have to keep the Greek letter organization climate outside of my band program, because if I don't, they're going to start to try to do some things that they do in their fraternities and sororities. So I don't even allow them to wear paraphernalia with us.
Wow.
You know, but that's just where we are now. And I think we're better than that, and we can get to a better place, because we were at a better place before.
Right.
Because I wasn't like this when I was a student at Bethune-Cookman. When I saw the Greek life, it was a beautiful thing, man. You know, and after people pledged and everything, and you got your letters and stuff, your friends, you might have friends that pledged something that's totally different from you. Y'all were still friends.
Mm-hmm.
You know, nowadays you got to pick a camp. You know, after you pledge, you got to pick a camp. You know,
Yeah.
And so it's something that we're gonna have to work on, and it's some of it is the culture that they come from, but we got to do a better job as professional Greek letter members, setting a better example and being more involved, and you know, kind of keep these young people. They got a lot of energy. They're smart. They're bright, technically savvy, and sometimes they just don't know how to use it. And, you know, they'll use it in a way that next thing you know, it's a big mess, you know, so, and they just need that kind of guidance, you know, so, but I see it every day on a college campus. And Mr. Beckford, you're probably going to start seeing it now, you know, once the kids come back from COVID, you know, it's just a climate that I think could be a whole lot better. We're better than that as Black people, you know, we're much, much better than that.
Well, Mr. Wells, I think you really touched on a good point, and it's about passing the torch. All of these principles that we've learned, that's what they're doing. They're taking these principles and they're giving it to these kids, that discipline, that sense of teamwork, that sense of brotherhood and sisterhood, that sense of I work hard and these are the things that I get out of it when I put the work in. So I think if we continue to do that, then that's when you start to see, you know, these young people, you know, succeed, and then that cycle continues. They teach the next generation, and they teach the next generation. So I think keeping those principles alive is really important, and that's what we do a lot at Step Africa. But I see it a lot in the band because we end up getting a lot of people who went to FAMU who were in your band, and they're part of my company now. And you can see that the principles are just parallel. And if we keep teamwork, commitment, and discipline at the focus, and we continue to give that to our young people, I think we'll have a fighting chance.
Oh yeah.
Well, definitely, thank you. I'm being told that we're going short on time, but I wanted to show another clip that we missed. If we have that clip, Ms. Ford, queued up, so that of this amazing work that has gone into this program in a very short amount of time. Wow. That arrangement, man, that arrangement.
Oh, yeah.
I'm glad.
So
I'm sorry. Yeah, that touched on a lot of stuff, right? With the deltas as well as man, that arrangement. Wow, I'm just sitting up here like, wow, I've never seen that before. But listen, I wanted to address a couple of questions before we have the time to do so. I got questions in the box. We did answer a question that asks about the disparity of funding for organizations and black bands. We know for a fact that there's not a level playing field when it talks to funding. Mr. Wells mentioned that. They call black bands for everything. When Drumline came out, okay, so we can keep going. Okay, Drumline came out and all of a sudden the world was now introduced to black bands, you know, but did the funding for those bands level up or get to a point where you can have several different uniforms or you can have brand new instruments, you know? I don't think that happened, and it's kind of is a microcosm of what is happening not just in the band world, but in the United States when it turns to disparity of funding between a white university and a black university. We're seeing it with the football. You know, Alabama State had their coaches at $10 million a year. You know, you go to HBCU, the coach is probably getting 50 or 60,000, you know. So, and in the band world, I have a question that was asked, and I want to address some people. They've been patient listening and writing in. Somebody asked about I wonder whether any of these esteemed panelists have ever connected with the Field Band Foundation in SA. Are you familiar with that? The Field Band Foundation was founded 25 years ago to help kids in the township discover creative potential and learn life skills.
No, I haven't heard of that.
South Africa? Okay. Now, one question someone asked, they asked, is it possible for participants to be Greek and be in a band at the same time? They both seem like a huge commitment. And one thing we say at Florida A&M, that if you make the March of 100, you should be able to do anything. You know, people ask, how do I do what I did? Because I was in FAMU band. And it goes on to say, what do marching band members do once they graduate? You know, isn't just music. I mean, the discipline in it. Anybody speak to that and some of the students that they had that went on to do great things?
Well, I know for sure. I know I've had tons of students that graduated from FAMU and Bethune-Cookman, and they're everything from attorneys to business owners to politicians. They're changing the world, even the head of the Food and Drug Administration. You know, they've done amazing things. So the band just gives you the fortitude, gives you it teaches you the skill sets to always strive to be, you know, ahead, especially if you're a section leader or a drum major, or if you're a leader in a band. You understand how to organize people, how to bring them together, and how to get them on common accord. Those are the characteristics of the CEO. And so band members end up stepping out and being CEOs. That's what happens.
Some of the band members end up staying in the arts. Step Africa is one of the top 10 African-American dance companies in the United States. So we have some of the band members come to us and then go on to do Broadway and other projects in the entertainment industry.
Amazing. Now, we saw, I mentioned Drumline, and then let's talk about how the style of step and marching bands influenced the American entertainment culture. We saw Beyonce do a halftime show some years ago. Mr. Wells already has mentioned the Ellen DeGeneres show and things that they've done. How do you feel about that, that influence on the culture, on pop culture?
I think the influence is great. I think one thing we need to be careful about is making sure that we tell our own stories. When we control our history, then we can control the narrative, because there's truth in the way that we experience it. But when you have others grabbing a hold of it and claiming it as their own, and then going out and getting hired to, let's see, teach choreography or arrange this, then, you know, you start to muddy the waters. So I think the influence on Black culture is great, especially in the entertainment industry, but we want to remain true to the craft, we want to remain true to history, and we want to be able to tell our own stories.
That's absolutely, I would like to add to that. That's absolutely correct. I agree with you 100%, but it's beyond, we've expanded beyond the African-American culture. We're now impacting the pop culture, the art, the country culture. They're utilizing the drum lines and the marching bands and step teams and just about every other commercial you see on television, inside movies. we have spots in just about every media presentation that's happening out there, and that's because there is a draw. That's because of the magnitude, the electricity, the magnetism that it has. It incorporates the visual, the emotional, into one place, and that's what band does. And I think you're going to get more, influence and exposure from step and band as we go forward.
And two questions to close this out, and you guys can answer this. What artistic efforts go into planning and executing a halftime performance? Ms. Norton mentioned that earlier, that these are some hours. Hours, and I think that goes back to that training. And then the last question I would like to approach is the Black Lives Matter movement, and what impact do you feel is going to have on Greek letter organizations as well as marching bands?
If I could begin with the show planning, you have a committee, you have students that put together the show. Myself, I will ask the students, hey, what is going on? Because in our community, you can't play what the people don't want to hear. So basically it's every week you have to give them a new show, because you want to make sure that, you keep the crowd and keep everybody entertained. But when you're planning a show, it's extremely difficult. The kids have to come together. You have to rehearse. You start with your drill. Some schools, you may have a concert selection. Then you have a dance routine, which is what a lot of people like to see. You have to sit there, rehearse hours, because you want all the movements to be on cue. You want everybody to be in sync. Then you have to, make sure that you're not working the kids too hard, but working them just hard enough that you're still getting everything done. And then you have to worry about the actual performance aspect, where everybody get jitters, they get nervous, they're afraid, the different things like that.
Yeah,
I like to say too, in show design, here at Bethune-Cookman, my main goal is I want to start with what I want the finished product to look like, and what effect I wanted to have on the audience, and the audience that we're performing to this week, because one year we played University of Miami in Miami on a Saturday. We did a Jacksonville Jaguar halftime on Sunday. And then we did Tampa Bay halftime for Monday Night Football. That was Saturday, Sunday, and Monday. We went about 1,000 miles and stayed in Florida, so, but each show had something a little different because each crowd was a little different, so we started there. And, what you see with our program is the energy and the creativity of the kids. The young men and women we have in there. And then we just have a staff that can take their ideas, and Portier is the best arranger I've ever been around. Portier, and not taking a shot at anybody else, but Portier, he's just amazing, man. And he's one of the most talented guys that I personally know in my life. And he can give you an arrangement in a heartbeat, and it's a good one. And he writes all of our music. We have Pedro Ori and just our entire staff. They just come together and take those ideas that the students have, and our job is to refine it, polish it, make sure that it's collegiate, and we go out there, and then at the end, is it entertaining? And that's one of the things I look at. If it doesn't move me, it's not going to move anybody else. That's one thing. But Mr. Bob, if you bear me 1 second, Mafan said something that I think is critically important that we touch on before we get off the air. Ownership of what we have. And we understand it. Administrators, presidents, school systems have to understand what we have in this art form. This art form, if we don't, it's our art form. If we don't take care of it, it's gonna be gone.
We'll take it from us.
And then someone else will pick up the torch and swear out, they started it, but it was such a big gap. Jazz is a big example of that. Jazz is a huge example of that. So jazz has influenced much of R&B and the music that comes out now. You can hear jazz and everything. But, the jazz artists, the Black jazz artists, they're endangered species, so we have to take ownership, alumni, the schools, the school systems, and make sure that what we have here with these band programs, and these are not just booty shaking band programs. I've heard Chad's symphonic ensembles. I've heard Mr. Beckford symphonic ensembles. You go in there, they're full instrumentation. And what I mean, they have bassoons, they have oboes. And these are the same kids that are out there at the Battle of the Bands at the Florida Classic, but they're on stage playing grade 5 and 6 level music and getting superiors against their predominantly white counterparts. So with all the challenges that we have. So these are talented kids, but we have to make sure that we protect the art form. If we don't protect the art form, if our people don't protect what we have created, we're gonna lose it. And the band directors can want it, the choir directors can want it, the dance coordinators can want it, step coordinators can want it, all of us can want it. But the people that handle funding, if they don't step up and support us and hold on to this, because we have a trickle up effect. What affects Mr. Norton at Northwestern?
Mm-hmm.
It affects Bethune-Cookman, it affects FAMU. What affects the middle school affects Mr. Norton, and it affects the colleges. We have the trickle up effect, so a lot of places, they're eliminating middle school band, just having quiet. If a kid want to play an instrument, in some instances, they can't start till they get to high school. Years ago, that was unheard of, teaching beginning band in high school. So, we got to protect it. And our parents got to get involved. They're taxpayers. I don't care how much tax you pay. You paying some taxes to somebody somewhere. You got to get involved and make sure that we put pressure on people to make sure that what they have on the other side of the city, they don't have scheduling problems at those schools. Those kids are in band. What they have on the other side of the city, they don't have to go out and raise $100,000 to get uniforms. It's given to them. A kid that don't have an instrument on the other side of the city, an instrument appears from somewhere. It appears from somewhere. If a kid takes computer, they don't have to buy a computer and bring it to class every day. But if they take band, parents got to make a $1,500, $2,000, $3,000 investment. And sometimes that's hard in our community. But the money is there. And you got to put pressure on your administrators, your superintendent, area superintendents, school board members that are voted in. You got to put pressure on those people to make sure that we keep what we have that belongs to us. Nobody else can do it. And when it's gone, people going to try to do it, but nobody else can do it but us. Nobody else can do it but us. We can say we want to, like I can't golf. That to me, that's a sport that blacks are getting into that we weren't privy to for a long time. I've tried it. I can't golf. I can't hit the ball to save my life. Can't hit it. It's just not my thing. But when you talk about music and black music, that's my thing. And didn't have to go to a school to learn black music. I just went to a black church and listened to black radio in my household growing up. And my dad being a black preacher in a black church. Music just was my thing. And I didn't know it at the time, but it influenced me in a great way. So we got to hold on to what we have. We got to and put the pressure on the people that are in those positions, and they're just not glory positions. They got to, you up there, earn your money. You up there, respond to your people. You up there, show us what you're doing for our students. That's what they have to do. That's what they have to do. I've been in education for 37 years. I don't have no filter no more, so it just comes out, man.
That's what you definitely have to do. That's what you definitely
just comes out, man.
I quickly want to talk about Black Lives Matter real quick.
Okay.
Step Africa, we've been doing a lot of virtual work, and we have a really, really dope project that's going to drop on the 15th, this Friday, in honor of Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. So it's a piece entitled No Justice, No Peace, and two people that were really instrumental in this project, choreographer Conrad Kelly, who went to FAMU, and also videographer, editor Aja Smith. So if you go to stepafrica.org or go to Step Africa with a K, spelled with a K, on our Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, you will see information about that. It's really important. It's a really powerful piece, and I hope that you all check it out.
Thank you so much. Just briefly, I want to get some of the questions that are in the Q&A. Nicole Smith say, are they reading sheet music or do they memorize the music while playing? I can answer that if you want to listen. Both, you know. One thing that I've never seen we have thousands of tunes. We got this thing that we call a book, right? Y'all know what the book is, right? And the book, you have to have a deep book in marching band. And I've yet to see a black HBCU band with a little music stand in the front of their horns reading the music while they're playing. So these students are reading this music and they're memorizing this music. That is an amazing feat. To see an HBCU band that can sit in the stands in the fifth quarter and play roughly 40 tunes if they need be, just to go back and forth. Another question by Cassandra Holmes asks, how can we get funding? And Mr. Wells did touch on that. Can a plan be put in place for HBCU bands or start our own foundations? Definitely. Any way that you can help any of these universities, any way that you can find a way to give to the Alumni Association that gets the money directly. However it comes, you can even drive a Brinks truck right up to any of their doors that's legally. I'm quite sure they won't turn it away unless you stole the Brinks truck. I have a question. Davy James asks, I am a step coach in New York outside of an HBCU college tour. How can I get our middle and high school students connected to step teams and bands 101?
Send me an email.
Okay.
Go to the website, send me an email, and I can help you out.
Definitely. So let's make sure we follow up on that. I want to go one by one, and I first want to shout out my good friend and mentor, Ernest Hamilton Jr., Miami Central graduate, went on. He said band saved his life as well. Worked at Bethune for many years, was a drum major at Bethune, you know, and when Ms. Wells talked about the camaraderie between bands, you know, and a friend of mine that I lost this year used to say a lot of times the videotape, back then it was videotapes, the videotape don't come with a disclaimer. So when students look at the videotape and they think that the bands are at odds, halftime, FAMU don't. I got to tell Mr. Wells one time we made a mistake on our account and walked onto Bethune-Cookman, the drum majors. It was my fault, Mr. Wells. I did our count too soon, and our drum majors walked onto the field while Bethune was on the field, and you know everybody looked at it like, oh, we wasn't trying to be disrespectful. Is the count went off wrong, and Mr. Wells didn't come yelling, fussing. It was just, hey, Mr. Wells, I apologize, and that's the way we have been. So that didn't come with a disclaimer. So when the students see those, they think that, oh, they're in rival. But the truth of the matter is, you know, we're friends. We're friends. Day when I mentioned yesterday how I was able to come to Bethune on their homecoming and just was first class. I mean, you know, sat with the band and was able to watch their show and things of that nature. So that's very important. What I want to do now is shout out your social media handles so that I'm going to go one by one, start with my fun. If you can let everybody know how to contact you and how to keep in contact with you and things of that nature.
So you can reach me on Instagram, KOKOMA22, Kokoma22 on Instagram, or you can follow us at Step Africa across all platforms. We spell Africa with a K.
All right. Mr. Dorian?
You can follow our band at the MMB_band on all social media websites. Shout out to my students. You guys are doing a wonderful job. If you're watching, continue the good work.
Mr. Beckford?
You can reach us on Facebook, on Instagram at the Roar Marching Band. Again, at Facebook and Instagram. We're also going to be kicking off our YouTube channel. It's going to be also the Roar. And then you can see there's a lot of videos on YouTube. We're going to be posting a lot of videos starting on Friday of our work that we've done in our inaugural year. And you may reach me. I want that my email to be out there because we have a lot of students we're trying to reach out and try to be able to be in a competitive mode. So richard.beckford@fmuniv.edu. If you go to any of our websites, if you go to the Facebook or Instagram page, you'll see all of my other contact information. please reach out to me if you're interested. Looking forward to seeing you all.
And last but not least, Mr. Donovan Wells, the great Mr. Donovan Wells.
Okay, and I hope I get this right. At Facebook is at BCU Marching Wildcats, the Pride. Twitter will be at Pride of BCU, and Instagram is BCU Marching Wildcats. And my personal email is wellsd@cookman.edu. And you can use any of those avenues to reach us, and we'll send you, if you're interested in auditioning, we'll send you information. With the pandemic and everything, I'll still be out recruiting. I don't know, in some instances I can come into a school, I may not. We're just gonna have to kind of work our way through that, but we're gonna be doing virtual auditions as well if schools are closed and things of that nature. So just keep that in mind. And to everybody on the panel, it has been my pleasure. Thank you so much.
Thank you
so much. And I want to just address Teresa Randolph and other people. That was their handles. If you want to sponsor a child and help, contact these universities, contact these high schools, contact Step Africa and support, because again, Mr. Wells hit it on the head when he talked about the trickle up effect, that if you want to fix the problem in our inner cities, and the violence that you see in these 16-year-olds, these 15-year-olds and 13-year-olds getting into, put the arts back into the schools. That's I don't know no other way to do it, especially in the city. And you said it right, Mr. Wells, on the other side of town, this is not an issue because they have everything they need. Right. But in the inner city, they found a way, and I don't want to get on my voice because I'm a black guy. I really would. It's not my platform. But they found a way to destroy Black communities by taking away the arts, because the arts save people's lives, from step teams to marching band, chorus, music. We used to sing in middle school, you know, and so these things will help the Black organizations continue to move forward. So we hope that, somebody mentioned about the Biden campaign, we hope that with this new administration coming up, we're able to get some things moving forward in the Black culture and continue to help support Black culture. But first of all, we must support ourselves. So as we go forward, we must show our value that we feel. So thank you so much. I want to thank the Arsht Center. I want to thank everybody that was involved in making this happen. I want to thank our audience that watched today. We hit on several different topics, and we're certainly appreciative of allowing us to go a little bit over time. Thank you.
Thank you.
Absolutely. I just want to say thank you, thank you, thank you. That was fantastic. If we had hours, we would keep going. But I just wanted to say thank you again to Mr. Timothy Barber for moderating this discussion, Mr. Wells, Ms. Akpan, Mr. Beckford, Mr. Norton, thank you for joining us in this space to discuss how our culture has historically influenced and still influence American culture. Thank you again to our sponsor, Bank of America. Thank you to our captioning team. And thank you everyone for being here tonight. If you would like to support the work of the Heritage Project, please text Greek STEP to 41444. Again, that's Greek STEP to 41444. We hope to see you again in February, as the Heritage Project will be hosting 2 events that month. The first being our virtual Heritage on Saturday, February 20th, which will be a celebration of Black culture with music and dance, arts demos, book readings, and much more. Following the Heritage Fest will be our 6th episode of our virtual salon series titled The Business of Show, where we will explore the economic impact and cultural significance of Black trailblazers in the performing arts, and we will look at artists as business professionals and discuss how Black culture has become a commodity. For more information, please visit our website at arshcenter.org. And if you'd like to rewatch this episode and past episodes from the Heritage Project Salon series, please visit our website for that as well. Thank you all again so much for joining us, and we hope to see you again next month. Good night.
Good night. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you for having me.
That was very much.
Thank everybody for the time and being a part. Appreciate you.
At least.
Guaranteed to show up and show out on your ass.